Few people realize this, but it's written in Scripture. Angels have always been present at key moments in history, in Eden, in the desert with Daniel, at the birth of Jesus in Bethlehem. But at the cross, something different happened. Heaven, which always echoed with praise, fell into absolute silence. Why was this so unique? And what does this heavenly silence reveal about God's love? When we find out, you'll understand why this truth was hidden for centuries. From the beginning of creation, the Bible describes heaven as a place of constant worship. The angels praised without ceasing, proclaiming, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts." Isaiah 6:3. It was as if the entire universe vibrated in harmony, a celestial symphony that never ceased before the glory of God. This continual worship was the natural sound of heaven. Imagine a packed stadium where the fans cheer every play. There is no silence, only shouts, chants, and applause. This is the best analogy to understand the angelic atmosphere. Millions of voices in unison, exalting the Creator. Heaven never knew a pause in its praise until the day of the crucifixion. When Jesus was taken to the cross, something unprecedented happened. The praise that had echoed from eternity ceased. A heavy silence filled heaven, as if even the angels were holding their breath. The scene was not one of celebration, but of cosmic mourning. For the first time, worship was replaced by a pause charged with mystery. And this silence wasn't empty. It was agonizing anticipation. The angels who had always sung now watched, in reverence and awe, the greatest act of love in history. But that's not the most disturbing detail, because what they hoped to see in those moments would reveal an even deeper secret. The Bible reveals in 1 Peter 1:12 that even the angels longed to understand the plan of salvation. They witnessed every scene of human history, the sin in Eden, the flood, the prophecies of Isaiah. But the outcome of God's plan was still a mystery to them. The angels knew something great was about to happen, but they didn't know all the details. It's like watching a suspenseful series where each episode leaves clues, but the ending remains a secret. The angels saw the pieces falling into place over the centuries, but the climax, the cross, had not yet been revealed. They watched intently, spoiler-free, simply waiting for the decisive moment. In Gethsemane, at the trial, and on the march to Golgotha, the angels stood in expectant expectation. They had power, they had strength, but they were not permitted to act beyond divine command. All of heaven waited, almost like an army in battle array, waiting for the trumpet that never sounded. This angelic waiting was not one of indifference, but of reverence. They longed to see how God's love would manifest itself amidst their pain. The suspense was so great that the heavenly silence only heightened the tension. But this was not the most surprising moment, because Jesus' birth had already hinted at what was to come. In Job 38:7, God reminds Job that when the foundations of the earth were laid, the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted for joy. The angels were there from the beginning, witnessing the creation of the universe. They were not just spectators. They were privileged witnesses to the creative power of God, who made all things through Jesus. John 1:3. We can imagine them as engineers overseeing every detail of a monumental project. They saw the mountains rise, the seas form, the sun begin to shine. Each act of creation was for them a revelation of God's character, like a work of art unfolding before fascinated eyes. But more than spectators, angels took on specific roles: messengers, protectors, warriors, ministers of divine will. They were sent to prophets, announced impossible births, and rescued lives in danger. They were, as Hebrews 1:14 states, ministering spirits, sent forth to minister for those who would be heirs of salvation. With all this experience of witnessing God's power from the beginning, imagine the shock of seeing the Creator become flesh, humiliated and nailed to a cross. The contrast was unimaginable, but that wasn't the most impactful moment, because when Jesus was born in Bethlehem, The heavens exploded with praise like never before. In Luke 2:13-14, the Bible describes a multitude of the heavenly host appearing to praise God, saying, "Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace among men with whom he is pleased." It was one of the most remarkable moments in history, the entire sky erupting in celebration of the birth of the Messiah. Imagine a family gathered in the hospital, awaiting the birth of a baby. When the child finally cries for the first time, tears, laughter, and hugs fill the room. So it was in Bethlehem. The cry of a human baby provoked the praise of millions of angels, for they knew that this child was the hope of all humanity. This explosion of joy shows how heaven followed every step of the divine plan. They knew that Jesus' birth was the centerpiece of history, the starting point for the salvation that would change the destiny of the world. There was no silence, no doubt. There was celebration, light, and songs. But if the heavens celebrated so intensely in Bethlehem, why did silence reign on the cross? This difference is no ordinary detail. It is a key that reveals the deepest mystery of God's love. And this tension intensifies even more when we look at Gethsemane. On the night of Gethsemane, Jesus withdrew to pray, and the weight of the world fell upon him. Luke 22:44 reports that his sweat became like drops of blood falling to the ground, a condition known as hematidrosis, which occurs in situations of extreme distress. This detail demonstrates the intensity of the emotional and spiritual pain he endured, far beyond the physical suffering that would come later. At that moment, an angel was sent to strengthen him. Luke 22:43. Interestingly, the angel didn't come to prevent the arrest, nor to free Jesus from his mission, but simply to give him strength. It's like holding the hand of a friend about to undergo painful surgery. He can't prevent the pain, but he can offer presence and comfort. The heavens were tense. Legions of angels waited, ready to act if the Father gave the order. Imagine an army, armed to the teeth, poised for attack, yet restrained, waiting for the trumpet that never sounded. Every second of silence heightened the anticipation. Could this be the moment to intervene? But it wasn't. The Son had to face history's most decisive battle alone. And this raises an even more disturbing question. If so many angels were ready to act, why did they remain motionless when Jesus was arrested and humiliated? When Jesus was surrounded by soldiers in Gethsemane, Peter reacted instinctively and cut off the ear of one of the guards. But Jesus rebuked him, revealing something shocking. "Or do you think that I could not ask my Father, and he would give me more than 12 legions of angels?" Matthew 26:53. 12 legions, about 72,000 angels, were waiting only for a command to act. Imagine the scene, a mighty, countless heavenly army ready to intervene. It's like seeing tanks, planes, and soldiers armed to the teeth positioned around a battlefield, all silent, waiting for an order that would never come. The tension was palpable. The Son of God was being taken captive, and the heavenly guardians didn't move a wing. This choice was not a weakness, but the fulfillment of a plan. Had the angels descended, the cross would have been avoided, and with it, humanity's salvation. Jesus made it clear that the power was available, but he chose not to use it. All heaven witnessed a silence charged with purpose. The Son had to be allowed to go it alone. But if the angels remained motionless in prison, what can we say about the tortures that came afterward? If they did not descend to the injustice of prison, how did they react when they saw the Lamb being scourged mercilessly? Isaiah 53 had already prophesied, "He was wounded for our transgressions, he was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement that brought us peace was upon him, and with his stripes we are healed." The prophet described centuries before what would happen on that Friday. The Messiah would be despised, rejected, and tortured without any guilt. Roman scourges were brutal. The flagrum, a whip tipped with metal and bone, ripped flesh with each blow. Jesus was torn apart before the crowd, and the angels watched in silence. It was like watching an innocent man being wrongly condemned while all who could intervene stood by, waiting. The entire heavens held their breath. The weight of the cross on their wounded shoulders made the journey to Golgotha even more painful. Each step was a mixture of physical pain and exhaustion. Many have experienced injustice in life, being accused without cause, being punished for something they didn't do. But no human pain can compare to what the Son of God endured on that road. And yet, no legion descended to stop him. This angelic silence was not indifference, but part of the mystery of the divine plan. But what happened next made the scene even more disturbing. The sky itself darkened in the middle of noon. Matthew 27:45 records, "From noon until 3 in the afternoon, darkness came over the whole land." It wasn't a natural eclipse. Astronomical calendars confirm that such a thing was impossible at Easter time. It was a supernatural act, the heavens responding to the suffering of the Son of God. The sunlight dimmed, as if creation itself couldn't bear to watch. Imagine it being the middle of the afternoon on a clear day, and suddenly the sun disappears. Silence mingles with fear. This darkness was a spiritual sign. Jesus, who never knew sin, was bearing the guilt of all humanity. 2 Corinthians 5:21. The Father allowed the darkness to symbolize the separation that was now falling upon the Son. For the angels, this must have been unbearable. They, who had always seen the perfect communion between Father and Son, now witnessed the most painful rupture in history. The dark sky reflected the pain of God's heart and the anguish of creation. It was as if the entire cosmic order screamed in silence, but that wasn't the most devastating moment, because amidst the darkness, Jesus let out a cry that echoed not only on earth but also in heaven, the cry of a son who seemed abandoned. At the height of his pain, Jesus cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Matthew 27:46, echoing the prophecy of Psalm 22. This was not just a human lament, but the expression of the heaviest spiritual burden ever borne. For the first time, the Son experienced the sense of estrangement from the Father, bearing within himself the sin of all. Imagine the cry of a child calling for its father in the darkness, hearing no answer. This is one of the most agonizing sounds anyone can witness. Now imagine this cry coming from the Son of God, and all of heaven listening without being able to intervene. For the angels, this was the most devastating moment. The silence of the Father and the pain of the Son. This cry revealed the depth of the price of salvation. Jesus not only suffered physically, he entered the abyss of spiritual separation in our place. The angels, who always saw the perfect love between Father and Son, witnessed the mystery of redemption, eternal glory hidden in the pain of the cross. But that cry would not be the end of the story. Because after the silence and the cry would come the most glorious scene the angels had ever witnessed, the resurrection. Matthew 28:2-3 describes how an angel of the Lord descended from heaven and rolled away the stone from the tomb, his appearance like lightning, his clothing white as snow. But notice, the angel didn't roll away the stone to free Jesus. The Son of God had already conquered death. The stone was rolled away only to reveal the victory that had already taken place. It's like opening the curtain on a stage after a show. The main action has already happened, but the audience needs to see the aftermath. The angel didn't come in to help Jesus out. He came in to testify and announce that death didn't have the last word. This scene was one of pure glory. The silence of the cross was replaced by the brightness of the resurrection. The sky, which had been silent in mourning, now lit up in triumph. The angels, who had previously watched in tension, now became heralds of victory. He is not here. He has risen, just as he said. Matthew 28:6. But the angelic mission didn't stop there. After the resurrection, they continued to accompany each appearance of the living Christ and proclaim the most anticipated promise: Jesus' return. After the resurrection, Jesus appeared to many: the women at the tomb, the disciples at Emmaus, the doubting Thomas, and more than 500 believers at once. 1 Corinthians 15:6. Each appearance was a reminder that death had been conquered, but the angels were still present as silent witnesses to this triumph. The most remarkable moment came in Acts 1:9-11, when Jesus ascended into heaven before his disciples. 2 angels approached him and said, "This same Jesus who was taken up from you into heaven will come in the same way as you have seen him go into heaven." Their mission was not just to explain what was happening, but to plant hope. The Messiah would return. We can compare this moment to a hero's farewell before departing for glory, leaving behind a promise of return. The disciples looked to heaven in astonishment, and the angels confirmed that the story was not over. The victory of the cross paved the way for the future consummation, but this promise wasn't just a thing of the past. To this day, angels continue to act as guardians and messengers, reminding humanity that God's plan is still in motion. And this brings us to the final point: the continuation of the angelic mission today. The Bible shows that angels did not disappear after Jesus' ascension. They remain active, sent by God as ministering spirits for those who will be heirs of salvation. Hebrews 1:14. This means that even today, they continue to fulfill the role of protecting, comforting, and proclaiming God's will. Many of us have experienced situations where we were delivered inexplicably, an accident avoided, a last-minute decision that changed everything, an unexpected answer to a prayer. These moments can be signs of angelic intervention, silently working on our behalf. As in the past, they do not act to steal God's glory, but to continually point to Christ. Their function is not to receive worship, but to serve as spiritual guardians, messengers of hope, and witnesses to the eternal plan of salvation. Angels remain an active part of the divine narrative, and if even they remain watchful, awaiting the fulfillment of the promise of Jesus' return, how much more must we watch and prepare? Because their mission is ongoing. But the next chapter of the story belongs to Christ himself, and it is precisely here that we reach the climax of Revelation. We have reached the deepest point of this mystery. The angels saw it all: the silent heavens, the weight of the cross, the cry of abandonment, and the glory of the resurrection. They, who always sang praises before the throne, fell silent before the greatest act of love in history, not because they could not act, but because they understood that the cross was the altar where the plan of salvation would be consummated. It's like watching walls crumble before your eyes, not of stone, but spiritual. On that day, the gates of hell were shaken, and the veil of the temple was torn. The scene the angels witnessed was not only one of pain, but of the greatest victory, the defeat of death and the eternal reconciliation between God and humanity. The angels' silence became eternal testimony. They saw glory hidden in shame, life springing from death, light shining in darkness. What seemed like defeat became the Bible's most shocking revelation. The cross was not the end, but the beginning of a new hope. And now the question falls upon us. What part of this mystery surprised you the most? Do you believe this silence was just a detail? Or was it God's way of showing that God's love is so great that even the heavens stopped to contemplate it? The angels saw the cross. They saw the silence of heaven, the weight of suffering, the cry of abandonment, and finally, the stone being rolled away in the resurrection. They witnessed every detail, the plan of salvation being fulfilled before the eyes of eternity. And if even they remained in reverent silence, how can we look at the cross without being deeply impacted? The next time you gaze upon the cross, remember this: it was seen not only by men, but by the heavenly guardians themselves. And to this day, what happened there inspires reverence in heaven and hope on earth. This is the clearest sign that God's love surpasses all human understanding. Now, I want to invite you to reflect. Which part of this mystery touched your heart the most? Was it the silence of heaven, the cry of Jesus, or the glory of the resurrection? Leave a comment, because I'll read each one and want to hear your answer. If you love discovering hidden secrets of the Bible and faith-building revelations, subscribe now and turn on notifications, because more shocking truths are coming soon. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this message, and write in the comments, "I want to live a faith that makes angels move," and don't leave yet. The next video that will appear on your screen is Jesus really the Messiah? The shocking truth. I guarantee you, this revelation will open your eyes even more to the divine plan. May God bless you and your home. Until the next video.